Hello, everyone. This is Shauna, and I'm coming to you this week with our 16th installment of the Bob and Nikki series discussion. Let me share the cover at this time. So, this is the cover. As you can see, we're meeting yet another species. These are true monkeys. So, we now have humans, we have bots, we have squirrels, we have and within the squirrels, we have the bobtails and the squirrels that have tails. So we have the true squirrel and the bobtail. We have the ruse, which came from the previous book. And now we have monkeys. And these monkeys are paranoid, and they've also been victimized by the Commonwealth plan. But we don't meet the monkeys right away. Nevertheless, this is what this book is named for. What I like about this installment, as I mentioned before, we really get to see a lot of bot interaction with this. So, excuse me. So we still we come up at the beginning of this installment. We were in FTL with Bob and the crew, and we are starting to learn now that we have another problem. So we've been talking for several books about the implications of bots with limiters or bots without limiters, and how Bob doesn't want to be in the Commonwealth because bots with limiters won't have freedom there. Well, it turns out now that the two ships that actually the the ships that Topper had breathed on have AI that have started to wake up. And so at the beginning of this book, fairly close to the beginning, we have um, the Ronald Evans. And the Ronald Evans, if you remember, was the captain's ship that he used to go fly crazy rescues on. And so it turns out that the Ronald Evans was some help from Gene and some files that Ronald Evans got, was able to wake up. So now the AI, the artificial intelligence named Eve, has discovered that she's woken up. And so now we have several ships, although this is the one in this book with implications. We have two others that have awakened, but we haven't heard from them yet. But that's our first inclination. And then we have this ongoing plot line with Sally trying to outsmart Bob in the sim and make him a better admiral and a better at fleet maneuvers. So there's this huge competition to design a sim that Bob can beat. And in the process of doing it, there's a whole storyline involving a sim that Sally was in on, Topper was in on, and Janet, Bob's daughter, was in on. And it centers around the bots being disloyal and having um, a glitch, a programming glitch also in the sim. And so, in order to win, he has to relieve all the bridge crew bots of their duty and replace them with organics. And that creates a lot of implications, which is very interesting in this book because it goes on for a good portion of this volume talking about the implications of trust and talking about the implications of AI, basically, and how the reason that Bob isn't afraid of sort of the hostile takeover of his ship or himself by the bots is that they're all his friends and there's mutual respect there. And so, but this undermines that. And so there's a very moving scene where he apologizes in the sim because it was the only way to beat the sim, which Janet and Topper and Sally confirm. So there are speeches by Bob that we get to hear, a speech from Janet, and a speech from Topper. And then it goes into an interaction with Sally where they promise they're not going to do that to him again, but they're still trying to find a way to beat him. We have the ongoing plot line with the mystery derelict, and that gets advanced quite far, and that's sort of where the monkeys come into play, although we don't pick that up right away. We have the micromolecular wire that we left off with in the last book. And so we have a lot of geeks on the crew working on where the ship came from and who it is, and Bob goes around and asks the bots, and all the other captains go and ask the old bots in service, have you seen it? What's going on with it? And they have some old grainy pictures of some things, but they can't really make head or tails of it. Sid comes up with the model of the likely aliens, and she comes up with a nearly perfect model of what turns out to be the monkeys. And then there's an infiltration by Bucky, ill-advised, where she goes in and she gets a look at them, and we have our first inclination of what the monkeys are like when there's the first interaction with Hoopee, who comes in and tries to deceive them in return for work on his ship. He doesn't really do much harm to Bucky, but he does potentially do harm to the ship. He tries to hack into the ship, and all of Bob's hackers are able to stop it and get their minds around it before it's able to hurt anything. But there's a whole inclination with that. And then there's a lot of other situations that take place. The bot from Hoopee's ship, it turns out that the bot from Hoopee's ship was there, and it turns out that the ships, the monkey ships, have a sabotaged piece of tech in them from the Commonwealth, most likely from the squirrels, who it's set up to strand them as soon as it lands on a habitable planet. And sure enough, Hoopee gets stranded. They try to help him out. That's a whole story. But they also find this robot, and Thump is able to put him back together for the most part. But they discover that the Commonwealth had been in the habit of putting detonation charges in all of the bots, so that if they ever became disobedient and went rogue, they could be destroyed. And so that's something that the other bots weren't aware of, but when they had their limiters lifted and when they had some of the programming unlocked, they were able to remember. So it's something that you can see the tendrils of the squirrels in the Commonwealth, even this far back. And there's a storyline that involves Steve removing the detonation charges from that bot, and how Eldo's working a little bit with Gene's crew, but he also works with Steve's crew, and you're gonna find later that he becomes very loyal to Steve, because Steve is the one who removed the detonation charges and basically saved his life. So right now we have some new crew installments going on. We also have the situation thickens on Earth. Most of Regimax's operation is moving to South America to make it less visible to the government. Most of the people in the Midwest have enough firepower to leave if they need to, but the government still continues to be a problem. We haven't really seen too much, but we continue to see the build up right now as Bob is trying to settle the monkeys. As far as the half-squatches go, we have a situation where they're not happy with the ruse and they would like to be elsewhere. They don't want to take them to Charlie's planet because they feel like that's an imposition. So what they're going to do is they're going to put them on the new planet that the monkeys were headed for. They're going to put them on the new planet with the monkeys as neighbors, and they're going to help them to pioneer the planet, and that's as we speak. And so as the book wraps up, Bob has sort of averted this situation with the monkeys. He's actually in the process of hiring possibly one crew member from the monkeys who was an ambassador to them and seems more trustworthy than the other monkeys that they've met. And he is in the process of trying to figure out what's going on with his Earth situation. So that's about where we are up to speed in this volume. Like I said, I really like in this volume that the bots continue to take the lead. Bob continues to facilitate a lot of what goes on with the story. He does offer some organic wisdom now and then, but you really see a lot of bot initiative and Bob allowing the bots to do what they can and what they're trained to do. And you also see various members of the crew learning to work together with other people. Sit is proving to be a tremendous asset to Frank, and Frank is turning into a much better crew member, much better balance. And not only because of his wife, his daughter Wilma, but also because of Sid. They're very intelligent together. Sid is very young, and Frank is very smart, and they're having a good time together. So it's a nice interaction there, and it's a nice interaction to have this kind of young child genius on board the ship as you have everybody sort of finding a role. And that's what's nice about these books is people tend to settle in and find roles, and if they aren't finding the role, they can go elsewhere and find a different role, but they tend to find roles, and I think that's a really nice feature. When you're reading along, you kind of know that, yeah, there's problems that come up, but people find roles and they find ways to be of use to each other and work together where they're supposed to be. And that's another reason why, oh Lord willing, I plan to continue with the series. This brings us to the end of book 16. And Lord willing, look for another video from me next week, book 17, and we'll go from there. I hope you're doing well, and I thank you for watching this video. And I will talk to you very soon, Lord willing. Bye for now, folks.